Hey, joining us on the Disc Institute of Pittsburgh Newsline right now, her name's Nancy Murray. She's the Senior Vice President of Achieva. Pennsylvania is having some major problems. We talk about different issues facing the state, but one that is not getting a lot of attention is probably one of the most important. Those suffering from intellectual disabilities are having a major issue right now, major problems, because staffing and funding is apparently at an all-time low, near collapse. So how do we help our friends and neighbors? Please welcome into the show Nancy Murray. Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you very much for joining us today. Truly appreciate your time. Hopefully you had a great holiday season, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, and I'm sure you're looking forward to a new year, a brighter future.
We sure are.
I saw this article in Public Source regarding a big fight that's happening. There's a staffing shortage that has left people with intellectual disabilities without a lot of services. Can you explain what your group, Achieva, does, what your company does?
Well, let's start with that. Achieva is one of the largest providers of services in Western Pennsylvania. We provide services for infants and toddlers with disabilities all the way up to community supports for adults and actually seniors with disabilities. We provide advocacy services for families and a lot of family support services also. We also do employment services. We have a very large Achieva Family Trust, so we help families plan for the future for their loved ones. And, we pride ourselves on providing the types of services that all types of people with disabilities are looking for. And if we don't provide it, we try to create them.
And I know that your employment efforts are really paying off, because I've seen and talked to several people with different needs working at grocery stores and auto parts stores and being very helpful, especially this Christmas season. So congratulations on that. I'll take that as a win for your organization at this point.
The employment of folks with disabilities is one of the major things that, we're invested in at Achieva. And you're absolutely right. At this point in time, people with disabilities really can work in all sectors of our economy. You mentioned grocery stores. That's always been a source of employment for people. But, we also have people who are working in banks and, other types of business sectors. We also have people who are starting their own businesses. They're becoming entrepreneurs in home businesses. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, one of my closest friends growing up, he grew up down the street from me. We shared a lot of great experiences, had an intellectual disability, and he always asked us about work. He wanted to work, and when he got his first job, you could see he was so proud of the work that he did in the warehouse. It brings tears to my eyes to this day when I think of him. And so excellent work there. But the major problem that we're facing right now is a staffing shortage, and that's leaving a lot of families in the lurch, because people have to work and still take care of a loved one, and it's getting near impossible right now.
It is. It's just awful. That's really the best word I can use to describe it. Organizations like Achieva are finding it nearly impossible to recruit and retain enough staff. We have, quite a few community residences where people live 24 hours a day. You mentioned employment. We're always looking for job coaches to work with our folks. And then there's the families. 75% of people with intellectual disabilities and autism actually live at home with families. And these families are becoming more and more desperate. And I don't say that to be dramatic, but that's really the truth. I work with a lot of families where there may be a single mom or dad, and those are the people who have been hurt. And it's almost a domino effect when you think about it. You mentioned before, people with disabilities who need somebody, with them around the clock.
Yeah, they require bathing, dressing, eating, some of them. I mean, exercise, everything sometimes has to be stimulated for them or helped.
Exactly. And when there are not enough, staff, direct support professionals, as we refer to people, for families to hire, either privately or through an organization like Achieva, well, that means a family caregiver has to stay home. And what we're now seeing is this horrible domino effect where, mothers and or fathers are giving up their job. So the family income is decreased. Maybe that was the person who also held the health insurance for the family. So now the family is, without health insurance or having to pay for health insurance that maybe they didn't have to pay for before. We also have families now struggling to pay their rent and mortgage. It's winter in Pennsylvania. People are going to find it harder and harder to pay those utility bills.
How many people do you serve each year? How many people are in your system?
We serve about 10,000 children, adults, and families throughout a regular year.
And does the governor know about this? Does the state legislator know about this? Is there any plan to help families that need assistance because of disability services is falling short?
We continue to be in touch with every member of the General Assembly. We have met many times with members of the governor's staff, with the budget secretary. We are continuing these efforts, and we are waiting to hear what the governor's plan might be, because right now, Pennsylvania's system of supporting people with intellectual disabilities, autism, and their families, it's no longer a crisis. We're beginning to see it collapse.
Wow, and I know the pay's not great, and the help is rapidly aging, is it not?
Yes, yes. We have family caregivers who are now in their 70s and 80s. They have been caring for, a son or daughter with a disability for, 50 or 60 years. Many of them are still on the waiting list for services. And when I say this is awful, this is just plain awful. These are families who have saved the Commonwealth billions of dollars over the years, caring for their family member at home.
And how can one of our listeners help? I'm sorry to interrupt. How can one of our listeners help, or any of our listeners help? How can they get a job helping, or how can they monetarily help?
Well, anybody who might be interested in working with people with disabilities, give us a call at Achieva. Our number is 412-995-5000. The other thing I would ask is that if you have a loved one with a disability, don't hesitate to give us a call if you're in need of some services or some support. And last but not least, if any members of the General Assembly are listening, please understand that this is a collapse, a virtual collapse of the intellectual disability system. And, people like me have spent our careers building this system. Many members of past governors' administrations and legislators have helped to build the system. And we are just not going to let it fall completely apart.
I can hear the urgency, and I can read about the urgency and see the urgency as well. How close are we to it's the absolute bottom?
Well, we have people who, and let me say that this was a problem before the COVID pandemic. Certainly the pandemic's made it worse, but this is a long-standing problem. And we now have people who have not been receiving services. Well, come March, in 3 months, they will have gone without services for 2 years. People are, families are really at the end of their rope at this point in time. We're seeing more desperation in families than I've ever seen. I've been doing this work for about 45 years, and I've never seen so many just desperate families in need of such help. And the other thing is the funding is there through the federal government's American Rescue Plan. We have the funding. Right now we know that we need $541 million to begin to address this problem. According to the Department of Human Services, it looks like there may be $400 million on the table. That would be $141 million short. And that's where we're asking the governor and the leadership in the General Assembly to help us. We have the plan laid out. We need them to execute it.
Nancy Murray, Senior Vice President of Achieva, regarding the Pennsylvania Intellectual Disability staffing and funding near collapse. Thank you very much for the insight. We truly appreciate it. We'll keep monitoring the story and have you back on later.
Thank you.